I'm Mary Godfrey, a PhD candidate from the University of Dar es Salaam. My study is about perceptions and the practices of counseling services in addressing marital instability in Tanzania, a case of married students in higher learning institutions. This study was conducted in Dar es Salaam region among 3 higher learning institutions, and specifically the study intended to examine how marital instability challenges affected married students' schooling. It also focused to assess how counseling services were practiced in higher learning institutions to help married students with marital instability challenges. The study also examined how married students perceive the counseling services offered in higher learning institutions. And lastly, the study focused on assessing challenges facing the provision of counseling services among married students in higher learning institutions and way of improving. So in this study, there were 29 respondents. Among them, 20 were married students, postgraduate, taking masters and PhD. 6 were counselors from 3 higher learning institutions, and 3 of them were postgraduate coordinators. Basing on the study findings, it was observed that married students in higher learning institutions are stressed and depressed due to marital instability challenges that they are facing. So this makes them lose concentration in their studies. Some miss classes because they had to travel far away to seek advice from parents and relatives on how to address their marital instability challenges. Others, they tended to face challenges in paying their tuition fees because after the conflicts or the misunderstanding, maybe the spouses were the one who were supporting them in their learning process, so they faced some challenges to get tuition fees. And others also, they delay in completing their studies because they were kicked out when the instabilities happened in their families. Basing on the practices of counseling services, it was observed that in all those 3 in all those higher learning institutions, counseling services were well practiced because there are well-established counseling units with the professional counselors who were assigned the counseling tasks. They were offering counseling services, although it was observed that most of married students who went for counseling services, they went there just because they were facing academic challenges. So it was observed that those academic challenges was the result of marital instability that they were facing. So most of them, they went there because they want to be advised and assisted on how to go with their learning process. But it was discovered that the challenges that they were facing in their learning process, it was because of the marital instability that they were facing. So they were assisted in how to cope and address those challenges through counseling services. Again, it was observed that in the practice of counseling services, most of the married students who seek counseling services went for drop-in counseling. They preferred to use the drop-in counseling model rather than making appointment. And this is because they feel shame of being seen by their peers and their colleagues. They feel shame of being labeled that they are going to seek for the counseling services. So they prefer to use the drop-in and not making appointment to their counselors. But it was observed that counselors were ready to provide the services to these married students. So this shows commitment of the counselors in those counseling units. Again, in the practice of counseling services, married students agreed that counseling services was helpful to them because they were helped on how to cope with those marital instability challenges. They were helped on how to go through when they are experiencing those stressful moments so that they can proceed well with their studies. Furthermore, it was also discovered that many students who seek counseling services perceive the counseling services as being effective to them, and 75% of those participants agree that counseling services was helpful to them because it helped them in in removing those stresses and depression caused by the marital stability challenges. So they restore their psychological makeup, and then they were able to continue with their studies. Apart from that, they said that when they seek counseling services, they find some challenges such as the counseling environment. Some of the counseling environment were not conducive because there was no privacy. So when they went there, they find difficulties in sharing their feelings because of lack of privacy. So they failed to open up because they are afraid that their information could be disposed, it could be shared maybe to lecturers or to deans or to other colleagues. Others, they think that they are not aware enough that the available services maybe would help them in addressing their marital challenges. So they lack some awareness regarding the available services. This study is very significant because it will inform higher learning institutions, administrators, it will inform deans of students, it will inform the counselors in higher learning institutions of what is happening among married students in higher learning institutions, the challenges that they are facing and how they are affected academically, and the ways of improving the strategies so that they can be helped to address those challenges so that to move on with their studies and completely successful. Thank you so much.